everybody, welcome back to my channel. I have another video for you guys. I'm so happy about this video. This is the Simon Says Stamp Be Yourself stamp set, and I decided to make a few cards for you today using this Simon Says Stamp card kit. So to get started, I'm just showing you guys some of the Spectrum Noir markers that I use to create my cards, and just kind of showing you guys this really cute stamp set. Now, to stamp these little bees, I use my Memento Tuxedo Black ink because it goes well with the Spectrum Noir markers. Just doing a quick, I actually sped the video up a little bit just to show you how I colored these little bees. And so I'm just going to color so many of these little bees and fussy cut them out. But I wanted you guys to see just kind of like an up close of how I colored these bees. Now, I did decide later on in the video on a couple different cards to make the little bee's head yellow instead of black, just to kind of switch it up. But basically, I did all my coloring pretty much the same. So yeah, I'm just kind of showing you guys the coloring, and then we're gonna get into our first card. So for this coloring, I used basically grays to color the black, and I didn't necessarily want to use my black marker because I think that would have been too dark, and then I wouldn't have been able to add that highlight in the center of the little bee's face. I also used a purple and a blue color to color the little wings. I wanted it to look almost transparent, so I used those two colors with the blender pen to kind of blend those colors out, and used a pink for his little cheeks. And that's pretty much how I did the coloring for all of these little bees. I'm using that blender pen to just touch right around the edges of the little bee. I'm gonna fussy cut these out, but that blender pen will help correct any mistakes that you make. So now we're going to go ahead and show you how those bees came out after I fussy cut them. I'm not the best at fussy cutting. I also cut out the Simon little wafer die, the little hexagon dies. And I'm starting off with this Simon. It's like a pre-printed cardstock sheet that came with a little image, and these are for the deco foil. So I did cut a piece of that rainbow shattered glass deco foil, and I cut the piece out to kind of fit only on the rainbow because that's where I wanted to add the foil. So I told you guys in my last video that I did not have a laminator, but I ordered one, and this is a really cheap laminator that I ordered off of Amazon, and I think it's A-Box, but this is my first time using this, so I have to really play around with it to see how I need to, I guess, stack up my cardstock to run it through. Just play around with it a little bit more to get, you know, some perfect, I guess, impressions from the foil. So as you can see, I did run this through twice. One in a folded sheet of paper, just a regular printer paper, and then the second time around I ran it through with some wax paper, and I got a little bit better impression on the foil. But like I said, I have to kind of play around with it until I really learn and get it right. So I'm just gonna peel off that foil, and I got a pretty good foiled impression on there. I really like the result. I wish it would have been a little bit more, but that's fine. So I'm gonna mat that first piece on this black piece of cardstock. But for this, I'm going to try a different method for foiling, and I got this method from Gina K Designs, where she used score tape, but I don't have score tape, so I'm just using this double-sided adhesive. I got this roll off of Amazon, and in my opinion, it worked pretty good. So I'm creating a background of stripes, and I am just, putting pieces of that double-sided adhesive going across that black cardstock. I'm burnishing it, and then I'm going to cut off the excess and trim that panel down. So here's that panel all trimmed down. I'm going to use my little picker tool to help release that that paper off of the adhesive. And so I'm just going to pull that off, and then I'm going to use some deco foil that I had in my stash that I hadn't really used. And this is just a gold deco foil that I got from a art supply store. So I am just pressing that with the gold side up. I'm pressing that down on top to the adhesive. I'm going to cut the excess off and then put that back in the little container to use for later projects. So I'm using my bone folder to just help burnish that foil piece on top of the adhesive. And then I will pull that off, and you will see how pretty this turned out. I actually like this method better than the method I used a minute ago, running that piece through my laminator, and it's only because I still have work to do, still have to learn how to use the laminator and the heat setting and all that good stuff. But this is a really beautiful background, and I am going to cut this panel and the first panel with my stitched rectangle die by Sizzix, and here that is. I am going to use some glitter Nuvo drops and to embellish this. But before I do that, I'm going to add some foam adhesive squares to the back of the rainbow panel. And I am going to pop that up on top of that pretty gold and black foiled panel. And after that, I will add my Nuvo drops for embellishments. I really love this card. I love the way it came out. Really simple, but it looks like you put a lot of work into it. So I'm using some liquid adhesive, my art glitter glue, to glue this full panel down to a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding card. And this is going to do it for my first card. After it's embellished with Nuvo drops, that'll be it. I'll set it to the side to dry, and then I'll get started on card number 2. So pretty. Okay, so starting on card number 2, I cut down a piece of the Honeybee Stamps designer card stock that came in the kit, and I'm taking a few of the stamps from the stamp set, this little heart-shaped beeline. I'm gonna ink that up with my VersaFine black onyx ink, and then I'm gonna stamp that kind of in the center of that little panel. And I'm also going to stamp the sentiment that says just because in that top right corner of that panel. And I'm taking a stamp marker that I had for a long time in my stash, and I'm going to use that to color the word just in. And this color, this is by American Craft, and I believe this color is Sunflower. So I'm just going to fill in those letters with that. And I'm also going to color in that little tiny bee at the end of the bee line. So I'm going to take that panel and I'm going to mat it on top of this piece of black cardstock that I cut down. I'm also going to use a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch top folding card base for this card as well. All of the cards that I made today are the A2 size cards, so they're all going to be the same size. So here I am basically taking actually two of those die cuts that I pre-cut out, and I'm gonna adhere one to the top left corner and one to the bottom right corner of this card panel. And I decided that I wanted to try out the glue sponge that came in the kit for these little intricate dies. So you'll see me using the glue sponge. Now I did make a little bit of a mess because I used my fingers to squish those dies down into that sponge. I started off with my little tweezer, but then I started using my fingers for whatever reason. I guess because I wanted to make sure I was getting enough glue on the back of this. It really works well. I'm just kind of a messy crafter. So yeah, so I'm going to adhere those onto my card. I am going to use some foam adhesive squares to pop that panel up on the front of that card base. I also used one of my little pre-cut bees that I colored, and I added that with a foam adhesive square as well. And now I'm taking some of the little hexagon shapes that came out of the die cut, and I'm going to use that to embellish the side of the card. Now off camera I did not show this part, but I did add some the Morning Dew Crystal Nuvo drops over those little hexagons to give them a little glossy look. But I'll show you guys that at the end of the video. So this does it for card number 2. And so next we'll go ahead and we'll get into card number 3. So for card number 3, my camera battery died. So you're missing a little bit of what I was doing. I took a small strip of the designer paper, the Honeybee stamps paper that came in the kit, and I stamped out some of the images from the kit with the Be Yourself sentiment. Now I'm using a deco foil liquid adhesive pen to fill in the word B, and also some of the little stripes on the little B that I stamped, and also some of the little hexagon shapes. I'm filling those in, and then I will let that panel dry for about a minute. And then I'm going to go back to my stash with the gold foil deco, the gold deco foil that I had. And I'm just going to cut a strip of that off. Here I'm showing you that now. I'm going to cut a strip of that off, and I am going to press that down right over those stamped images. And I'm going to sandwich that in between this piece of paper, and I am going to run it through my laminator. I actually ran this through twice, but you'll only see it the one time because I cut that extra little footage out because I felt like this video was going to be long enough. So then I'm just going to open that up, and I am going to peel that foil piece right off the top panel. And it came out looking kind of distressed, and I think it's because when I was adding the glue adhesive, I didn't add it fluidly. I kind of missed spots with that, but I actually like this distressed look that I got. So I liked it in the end. Here is that finished card. I finished that off camera. I layered it on a piece of the designer paper that came in the kit. I finished coloring the little bee, and I added that to a white top folding card. So next we're going to get into card number 4. I am taking another piece of that designer paper, and I'm cutting it down to mat on an A2 white card that I'm going to make top folding. So I'm just showing me cutting that panel down. And off camera, I pre-cut some a die by Bo Bunny. It's the selfie die, and it's like the little selfie picture frame. I cut that out in this teal colored cardstock that I had in my stash. And I'm just basically kind of figuring my placement for this card design. I also cut that in white just so that I could have that inlaid piece, and that's the piece that I'm going to use to do my stamping on. So for this card, I am going to be using the 2 little bees that's holding hands, and I'm going to add this little swirly bee line, and I am going to just use my Memento Tuxedo black ink and stamp that down on that little card panel. I'm also going to stamp the sentiment right under the little bees in that little corner, and it says, "We belong together." And so next, I really sped this up because it's more coloring, me coloring the bees. And this time you see that I'm coloring the bees' heads yellow instead of black, just to switch it up a little bit. I really love this card kit. These little bees are super cute, and they really inspired me to make several cards for you guys today, because usually I may get out one card, but yeah. So I'm just matting and layering this card, gluing everything together. And I am just going to inlay that little piece that I stamped and colored right into the little picture frame. And I'm also going to inlay a little heart that I die cut from one of the little designer paper pieces that I had left over. So I'm also using this Bria Reese. It's like a glitter, sparkle glitter pen, and I'm just going over the little bees in the heart with that to add a little bit of shimmer. And I'm also going to add some of the Morning Dew crystal drops by Nuvo, and I'm adding that over the heart. It's gonna dry clear, so you'll see the color in the end. I'm also adding some of this turquoise, this really pretty shimmering turquoise color. Sorry, I can't hardly talk, got tongue tied. And that pretty much does it for the fourth card. Now for the fifth card, I actually made the card base using the Simon Says Stamp Sea Glass cardstock that came in the kit. And I also cut this little panel down from one of the designer papers that came in the kit. And I am going to use my glue runner, and I'm just going to adhere that right down to the front of that card panel, or card base, I should say. Just for a little extra hold, I'm adding a little bit of that liquid glue. So next I die cut this out of white cardstock, and this was from a die that I got off of Amazon. I really love that little die. It was so cheap on Amazon. I'm also using this Recollections spray pigment ink, and I'm using that to color the little that little die frame. And so I use just a cardboard box that I had, and then I'll use that to spray inside. I'm going to use my my heating tool to help dry that little piece there. And once it's dry, I'm going to use some liquid glue, and I'm going to adhere that right down to the center front of the card. Off camera, I like stamped and colored images on the pieces that came out of that die cut. And so I stamped the sentiment, "You're the bee's knees." I also stamped 3 of the different little bees on these little pieces that go inside of that little window die. So I'm just going to use some liquid glue, and I'm going to place those right back where they go inside of that die. And then to finish this card off, I'm going to add some of the Simon sequin that came in the kit. Also, I'm going to use some of the Morning Dew Nuvo drops that I had in my stash, just to add a little gloss over the little bees' glasses and also those little hearts. And that is going to do it for the last card. I'll give you a little run through all of the cards at the very end of the video. So here you see me adding the sequin. I just really love this little card. Those little that window die, it was like really perfect for those little bees. And guys, I just started another account to Instagram, and it is called Rubber Stamp Lover, and I would love it if you guys would go check out my Instagram and follow if you would like to. This is pretty much the end of the video. This is just a recap of all these cute cards that I made today for you guys. And if you're not subscribed, please click the link below to subscribe to my channel. I will also leave a link below for my Instagram, and also my blog spot is rubberstamplover@blogspot.com. So yeah, if you would please just check me out, guys. Thank you for watching, liking, and commenting, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.